Tragedy in an unknown cave. Benjamin Miller and his two friends, Jake and Ryan, prepare for their cave exploration, packing ropes, helmets, and headlamps. They arrive at the cave entrance, a narrow, rocky opening hidden deep in an isolated forest. Excitement fills the air as they step inside, their headlamps cutting through the pitch-black darkness. The cave is cold and damp, with jagged rock formations twisting in strange, unnatural angles. They carefully navigate the tunnels, crawling through increasingly narrow spaces. Benjamin leads the way, pushing through tight corridors with the thrill of discovery driving him forward. The walls feel like they are closing in as they progress deeper into the unknown cave system. They reach a particularly narrow passage, forcing them to shimmy through sideways. Their headlamps flicker, casting eerie shadows along the rugged stone walls. Benjamin spots what looks like an opening ahead, believing it leads to a larger chamber. Excited, he announces his discovery and pushes forward before his friends can respond. The passage quickly narrows, twisting at a sharp angle, but Benjamin keeps going. Suddenly, he realizes he's stuck, his chest pressed against cold rock. Panic sets in as he struggles to wiggle backward, but the stone grips him tighter. Jake and Ryan hear Benjamin's strained breathing and rush to help. They crawl toward him, reaching out to grab his legs, but he's wedged too tightly. Benjamin's breathing grows shallow. The pressure on his chest makes it difficult to inhale. Ryan tries to push the rock around him, but it refuses to budge. Jake realizes they need help and begins to wriggle back toward the cave entrance. Minutes feel like hours as Benjamin remains trapped in the suffocating darkness. Ryan stays by Benjamin's side, offering reassurance, but fear is evident in both their voices. Jake reaches the surface and calls for rescue, his hands shaking as he dials. A rescue team arrives, quickly assessing the treacherous cave layout. They devise a plan, chiseling away at the rock while setting up a pulley system. Inside the cave, Benjamin's condition worsens. He starts shivering violently. Ryan watches helplessly as Benjamin's strength fades, his voice barely above a whisper. Rescuers force fresh air into the narrow passage to help him breathe. The team begins carefully chipping away at the surrounding rock. Each chisel strike echoes through the cave, a desperate race against time. The confined space limits movement, making the rescue painstakingly slow. Outside, more rescuers arrive, bringing additional equipment and medical supplies. Inside, Benjamin's breathing is labored, the tight space crushing his ribs. His thoughts blur between reality and exhaustion as the cave walls seem to close in further. The rescuers continue widening the passage, but progress is slow. Benjamin whispers that he's losing feeling in his limbs. Fearing hypothermia, rescuers apply heating pads, but the cave's cold air limits their effect. Jake and Ryan stand outside, anxiously waiting for updates, guilt creeping in. Benjamin's body starts to go limp, his energy drained. The rescue team increases their efforts, working tirelessly to free him. After hours of struggle, they finally widen the passage enough to pull him out. They carefully maneuver Benjamin free, but he doesn't move. Medics rush in, checking for signs of life as they carry him toward the surface. The cold night air greets them as they lay Benjamin on a stretcher. Jake and Ryan watch in horror as paramedics perform CPR. The minutes tick by in unbearable silence. Finally, a medic shakes their head. Benjamin has succumbed to his injuries. The realization hits Jake and Ryan like a punch to the gut. Sontano del Aire Cave Tragedy. The sun rises over the rugged Mexican wilderness as Christy Quintana and her fellow cavers prepare for their expedition. The group, Miguel Angel Blanco, Rocio Medina, Cuauh Sanchez, Sergio Sanchez Armas, and Alfredo Silva, set out on a grueling 2-hour hike toward the cave. They arrive at Sontano de las Golondrinas, a stunning vertical cave, and marvel at its sheer 764-foot drop. The cave entrance is surrounded by loose rocks, so the team carefully clears debris before securing their ropes. Excitement builds as Miguel, Christy, Medina, and Sanchez volunteer to descend while Silva and Sergio remain at the surface. One by one, they rappel into the depths, their headlamps casting eerie glows on the jagged rock walls. At the bottom, they take in the beauty of the cavern, its vastness both intimidating and awe-inspiring. They explore, taking notes and marveling at the ancient rock formations. Laughter and chatter echo through the chamber, none aware of the looming tragedy. As night falls, they prepare to ascend, eager to return to the surface. Christy and Miguel begin their climb first, their movements careful and controlled. Everything seems to be going smoothly until the clock strikes 10:30 p.m. Without warning, a section of the cave's lip gives way, sending tons of rock hurtling downward. A deafening roar fills the cave as massive boulders crash down the vertical shaft. Christy, suspended on the rope, has no time to react before she is struck by the falling debris. Blinding pain explodes through her body as rocks slam into her head, shoulders, and back. Her cervical and lumbar vertebrae fracture on impact, leaving her legs paralyzed. Miguel, positioned 50 feet below her, watches in horror as debris falls past him. miraculously missing him. At the cave's bottom, Medina and Sanchez freeze as chunks of rock block their exit. The air fills with dust, making it difficult to see or breathe. Miguel fights through the dust, climbing up to Christie's position, his heart pounding. He reaches her. She's conscious but trembling, her pain etched in every breath. Miguel gently reassures her, stabilizing her position on the rope. She tries to move her legs but feels nothing. "I can't feel them," she whispers. Miguel's mind races. He knows they need help, fast. With no other choice, he tells Medina and Sanchez to stay put and begins climbing toward the surface. Every muscle burns as he ascends the unstable terrain, knowing Christie's time is running out. At 11:30 p.m., he finally reaches the top, where Silva and Sergio listen in stunned silence. They scramble into action, rigging a makeshift haul system with their limited equipment. But the lack of proper pulleys and the unstable rocks slow their progress painfully. By 2:30 a.m., they manage to lift Christie to within 12 feet of the surface. Miguel rappels back down to assist in pulling her over the edge. As he reaches her, his breath catches. Her body is limp, her face eerily still. He calls her name, his voice cracking with desperation, but she doesn't respond. He checks for a pulse. Nothing. Christie has succumbed to her injuries. Shock and grief hit Miguel like a physical blow, but he forces himself to act. He tries to lift her over the lip, but exhaustion and unstable conditions make it impossible. Sergio makes the painful decision to hike back to their vehicle and summon help. The 2-hour journey in the dark is grueling, but by morning, a rescue team arrives. Medina and Sanchez remain trapped at the bottom, their isolation stretching into 16 hours. At 11 a.m., the rescuers secure Christie's body, carefully lifting her through the final 12 feet. Each movement is slow, precise, as they ensure the rope and surrounding rocks remain stable. Medina and Sanchez remain in darkness, hunger and exhaustion gnawing at them. By 2 p.m., the rescue team clears the last unstable debris and reaches the trapped cavers. Medina and Sanchez receive food, water, and a much-needed moment of reassurance. At 5 p.m., they finally emerge from the cave, physically drained and emotionally shattered. Tears stream down their faces as they take in the crushing reality. Christie didn't survive. Climate cave tragedy. A humid morning in Georgia, Bruce prepares for another caving expedition. The group of 7 researchers arrives, eager but inexperienced. Bruce reassures them, explaining safety measures and the cave's dangers. The group secures their gear, testing headlamps and adjusting helmets. They enter Climax Cave, their excitement mixed with nerves. Bruce leads them through initial chambers, pointing out unique rock formations. The group squeezes through tight passages, adjusting to the cave's environment. They hear the eerie sounds of the bat colony above them. The cave grows darker and more humid as they descend further. Bruce shares stories of past expeditions, keeping the group engaged. The group encounters a particularly narrow squeeze, testing their nerves. Bruce expertly guides them through, easing their fear. They reach a spacious chamber and take a short break, sharing snacks. One researcher expresses doubt about going deeper, but Bruce reassures them. As they press on, the air feels thicker, and the walls dampen. They arrive at Razor Hall, admiring its hauntingly beautiful rock formations. Bruce explains the usual routes: ledge crawl or submerged passage. They realize the water level is far higher than usual. Bruce decides to assess the submerged passage first, promising to return quickly. The group watches as Bruce takes a deep breath and vanishes beneath the water. Seconds turn to minutes. Bruce does not resurface. The group nervously calls his name, but the cave remains eerily silent. A faint, flickering glow appears beneath the partition, unsettling them. They debate whether to wait or act, fear creeping in. 2 researchers cautiously step into the icy water, searching blindly. Their hands find only empty space. Bruce is gone. Panic sets in as they realize they are trapped without their guide. They agree to retrace their steps, navigating the cave alone. The passages that seemed easy now feel unfamiliar and treacherous. Darkness and exhaustion weigh on them as they press forward. After hours of struggling, they finally reach the surface at 11:30 p.m. They rush to alert authorities, detailing Bruce's disappearance. Local deputies assess the situation and call in cave rescue experts. Will Summer, a veteran cave rescuer, arrives and takes charge. 2 trained divers prepare to re-enter the cave. The original group guides the rescuers back to Razor Hall. The divers enter the frigid water, shining powerful lights below. They locate Bruce's lifeless body, submerged near the partition. Carefully, they begin the delicate process of retrieving him. The grim reality sets in as they surface with Bruce's remains. Bloomington Cave Tragedy. On December 24, 2002, in Cedar City, Utah, a group home for troubled teenage girls gathered in a common room for an announcement about a special Christmas Eve field trip. The girls reacted in different ways, some excited, some indifferent, as the counselor revealed the destination, Bloomington Cave. Kerr, sitting near the back of the room, immediately felt uneasy upon hearing the name, though she couldn't explain why. When she voiced her concern, the staff dismissed it, assuring her the trip would be safe. Across the room, Kylie and Megan, 2 inseparable friends, chatted excitedly about the upcoming upcoming adventure. Bloomington Cave was a sprawling, dangerous cave system, known for its narrow crawl spaces, sudden drop-offs, and history of accidents. Caving experts had tried multiple times to seal the cave, but each attempt failed as thrill-seekers forced their way in. Mapping efforts in the late 1990s revealed over 7,100 feet of twisting, unstable terrain, confirming the cave's reputation as a hazardous place. On Christmas Eve, the group of 15 girls and 5 counselors boarded a van and drove down a rough, unpaved desert road toward the cave. The mood was initially lively, but as they neared the entrance, an eerie silence settled over the group. The cave entrance was a jagged opening in the ground, barely visible among the rocks, requiring the group to crawl inside. The counselors split the girls into 2 groups, planning to move in a single-file line with a counselor at the front and back. The girls were instructed to hold hands to avoid getting separated in the darkness. Inside, the air was thick and damp, and the walls pressed in on all sides, forcing them to crouch and shuffle forward. The darkness was overwhelming, with only 8 light sources shared among 20 people, 5 headlamps for counselors, and 3 handheld flashlights. Those without lights relied on touch and the guidance of the person next to them as they moved deeper into the cave. Kylie and Megan whispered to each other at first, trying to keep their nerves steady, but their conversation faded as the tunnels grew narrower. The group squeezed through tight passages, crawled over jagged rocks, and navigated steep, slippery slopes. Eventually, they entered a larger chamber known as the Big Room, a temporary relief from the claustrophobic tunnels. Though the space was wider, it concealed a hidden danger, a sheer 150-foot drop just beyond their feet. The uneven floor was covered in loose rock, making every step uncertain, but the group had no way of knowing what lay ahead. Light was scarce, and many of the girls could only move cautiously, guided by those with flashlights. Kylie, who had been steady throughout the trip, suddenly seemed tense, her breathing uneven. Megan noticed her friend trembling, her grip tightening as they stepped forward carefully. Then, with no warning, a piece of unstable rock beneath Kylie shifted. In an instant, she lost her balance, and before anyone could react, she fell. The sound of her body hitting the jagged walls echoed through the chamber as rocks tumbled down with her. The group froze, holding their breath as the last echoes faded into silence. Then came the final, unmistakable sound of impact. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the panicked gasps of those nearby. A counselor snapped out of his shock and bolted toward the entrance, running to get help. The rest of the group scrambled to reach Kylie, carefully navigating the unstable terrain. As they got closer, they could see her at the bottom, motionless and partially buried under fallen rock. No one needed to check for a pulse. It was clear she hadn't survived the fall. Hours passed before rescue crews arrived, working carefully to recover her body. By the time they emerged from the cave, the Christmas Eve sky had turned dark, flashing emergency lights casting long shadows. Back at the group home, the news was delivered to Kylie's adoptive parents, who were devastated. The group home's director denied responsibility, claiming that Kylie had an undiagnosed heart condition that caused her death. An official autopsy later confirmed the true cause of death: blunt force trauma and liver lacerations from the fall. Further investigation revealed that the group had entered the cave with only a fraction of the necessary light sources. The conditions inside had made it nearly impossible for the girls to see where they were stepping. Despite this, no legal action was taken against the group home or the staff responsible for the trip. No lawsuits were filed, and no charges were pressed, leaving the tragedy unresolved.